Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And had an indescribable hang with Fletch Wiley on Monday, and he was part of the contingent of the Third Avenue Blues Band with Hadley Hawkinsmith and Bill Maxwell. And to me, after 2,000 radio interviews and 4 books, I can honestly say that the story of their conversion and their willingness to receive the Lord has really been impactful for me, even as a Taoist. And this journey that I've been on has taken me to many different spiritual realms, and none of them have really been off-putting at all, because the musicians themselves were seekers. And I get a chance today to speak to a guy who goes way back in the lineage of Pacific Northwest music. He also collaborated quite a bit with a dear friend of mine and another person who became very disenchanted with man's view of God. It was David Friesen. Went on his own journey and eventually was able to not only find the reason why he played music, but the purpose that God had for him. And I just believe that we are all one human race. All gods are the same. And that in many ways, the philosophies that they project are ones of selflessness, individuality, creativity, and care and love. And if more people recognize that, we would be in a much better place than we are today. One of the most humbling things about the pandemic is that the people that I have chosen to interview, musicians, basically have had no ability to perform. They've been taken away from the bandstand. And as a result, a lot of the vibration, overall spiritual vibration, is quite low. And I get a chance today to speak to somebody who's been on the bandstand for a long time, found a way to make a living as a professional musician, and continues on today in a very, very nebulous and unclear time. But we know that the spirit is the only currency, and we will carry on. Jay Thomas, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
All right. Thanks, Jake. Yeah, you hit on a lot of stuff. I mean, the pandemic has given us this time to reflect on some of the most important things are the people in our lives. And we really, for a while, I was really missing, all the experience of all my friends, in the life that I've built over, I don't know how many years, quite a few. And I'm really fortunate. My wife and I, Becca and I, are real fortunate. So we're getting by, and I managed to right away, even in the depth of this pandemic thing, I had 2 situations, to just keep going. And every Monday and Friday, I get together with 2 friends and out in a little studio and out back of my house, and I opened up all the windows and we got 6 feet apart, and I sometimes in the winter I had to turn on the heater.
That's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we play, and it's kind of a workshop. Now it's morphed into a workshop. We're still doing it today. I just got done about 10 minutes ago, and it's turned into a workshop. And then then there was another band that I have a session at a place called the Finney Ridge Community Center, and they have these big rooms that are like 700 and almost 750 square feet. Well, we got together also once a week, and now I have two new bands. One of them I call the Dallas. They have the 1 o'clock band and all that.
Right, right.
Well, my band is called the 12 o'clock band. That's out the back of my house, and five of us have been getting together up at this place called Finney Ridge, and I said, how about the Finney Five? So we're starting to come out of this. I play with another repertory band, and we just got done doing a concert with Joshua Redmond, and that was a lot of fun. We had maybe three rehearsals and concert, and we had before that we had Christian McBride. So I've been fortunate that I've been kind of busy. For a minute, I got a little help too, thanks to the government was helping there for a minute with unemployment. And usually I can't get unemployment because I'm self-employed, but I'm a self-employed gig worker, so I was glad that they came through there for a little while, and I only needed a little help, and now I'm fine.
Jay, I mean, do you recognize? I mean, that's beautiful, and I'm so glad that you guys are healthy and you're still able to play. But do you recognize how seriously devastating I'm talking about younger road dogs, how insanely devastating this pandemic is, because the only way you can make money in music today is by touring. There's no studio scene. There's no the royalties or the residuals. Today, the intellectual properties are gone. And so the only way you can make money is by touring, and you can't even make money at the gigs. You make it off the merchandise table. And I just wonder what your advice is for younger cats. When you go back to your time, I mean, the idea, what is your advice to younger cats about looking towards the light? Can you point to a time in your career? Maybe, I mean, I just going through my interview with the late, great drummer Kenny Malone from Nashville. He just passed away, and he was talking about, he did so much studio work, and then by the late 70s, there was the efficiency model, and it became so predictable, he got sick of the studio, which is like, that sounds so amazing to me because he was making so much bread. But the point is, I guess my question is this: do you really think that our society still views a musician as a viable profession? And what is your advice to people who have basically had their yogic state on the bandstand taken away from them with no foreseeable touring circuit in the future?
Well, I think it's gone back. Younger folks, they're finding a lot of different ways to live. I think that we have more of my younger friends, they're really the ones that are by themselves are not doing well. If they're by themselves, they're just living with their parents. That's it. But if they're really gregarious and sociable people, then there's a lot of networks of people supporting one another. And it's maybe shared rent and, all kinds of things going on. We're going back to kind of an earlier time in a way. Not everybody is as privileged as I am and my wife. We came up at a different time, and for a while it was really rough for me. I mean, for a long time I was, I was like the guy with the lantern, trying to find an honest man. For me,
I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, it was you were in the wilderness.
And I was trying to find out how I could make it, because I had a lot of problems, and I was, pretty antisocial, and I did a lot of things that I had to live my way into a new life, basically, and so my advice is just is to network with people, and these days you have to do a variety of things. So if it's a big deal that you make your entire nut, your entire living with music, then you're going to have to do a lot of different kinds of music and be pretty handy at a lot of different things. If there's a lot of people I know that are, doing other things part-time, tech things part-time and whatever, also that is somewhat of a solution,
Hey, Jay, by the way, could you move to a different room? There's a lot of slamming of dishes and things like going on. It's kind of distracting.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I mean, and it's always been that way too. Look at people like Denny Zeitlin. He was a practicing psychiatrist. Well, he was playing and recording and doing all kinds of things. So, how we want to roll here with this?
Well, first of all, Denny Zeitlin had an opportunity. He looked at Eddie Henderson at Berkeley when he was his graduate, when he was his professor, and Eddie was going out on tour with Herbie and M1 Dishi, and he wasn't making a lot of dough. But then he looked at him and said, I wish I could do what you did. And I guess more to the point, I really need you to go a little bit deeper about the way society views a musician, because you guys were able to, the cost of living was not nearly as high. And today you're paying to play. You basically have to market yourself. You can play for the door.
Right.
But like I said, I mean, it's great to network, but you know what? I don't want to hear music in isolation. You even said it yourself. You opened the windows because you are so horny to play music with other people. Music is made, right. Church is on the bandstand. So, I mean, like, this is, I understand about the 8 hats. You got to wear all these different hats, and it's never been easy. But even today, do people, by and large, in this corporate paradigm, view music as a profession, or is music a musician's gift to the world?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, when we get into, where are we headed and stuff, it's anybody's guess. I mean, it's hard for me to focus on just one thing, like a musician or whatever. I feel many things were in play for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
That's thrown the whole thing off.
That's true.
And what I mean, look, it's like I'm around people. I have friends that have a completely different, separate news feed, for instance, and you know what I mean.
That's a whole different thing, though. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Really?
Because it's a separate thing. What's happened is when I came up, a radio station, if it wasn't classical, then they played everything on your station. So you got a balanced view of not only politics but music, right? I would hear Patti Page one song, and then it'd be Ray Charles, and then it'd be Frank Sinatra, and then it would be Johnny B. Good.
Sure.
And it would go like that, just one after another, just
no separation. There was no labels.
All kinds of stuff.
Totally.
So all of a sudden, I wasn't upset as a young person that they didn't play my favorite song, because I knew it was coming up and it was just fine, right? But while that was happening, I was exposed to all these different things, and then these madmen or these guys that took advantage of the very powerful medium of TV, they learned something. They learned how to sell stuff. Let's specialize. Let's specialize. So the specialization is fine. I'm going to specialize to people that like such and such. Well, if they do that, and then all of a sudden they have a station that only has one little thing, then what you end up being is trapped by your likes. And so people that like that, that's all they hear. So pretty soon we've lost the ability to talk with one another because there's no exposure to one another in any real sense of the word. Like sporting events, for instance, used to be you go in and you might be cheek to jowl. All the tickets were the same price, and you'd be cheek to jowl with the richest guy in town and the poorest guy in town.
Absolutely. I love
Well,
this.
you don't have that anymore,
No.
so everybody's getting a separate feed of information, and it's destroyed the ability to communicate. So it's not so much that people hate jazz. It's just like music now is not supported by an educated, well-heeled populace with some extra cash. It's like, it's something quite different. So,
well, I got to be honest. What you just said. No,
yeah.
it's stratification. It's like, but I know you're just getting hip to my show, but I've dedicated my show doing these interviews, talking to Ted Nugent about how Yusef Lateef impacted him when he would go see him at the at the bars in Detroit, or the idea that bluegrass musicians like David Grisman were going to see Eric Dolphy. So what you just described is what I'm doing the antithesis of that, because that allows the ability to feel connected. And I think what you articulated is perfect. I can tell you right now, I can't fit into a corporate paradigm because I'm not doing what you just described. It's all music. When I first started, I was interviewing Richard Davis, Jack DeJohnette, Dave Brubeck, and people were like, oh, he's a jazz journalist. I was like, absolutely not going to happen. And so I started to go to Taj Mahal, and I started to go to folk musicians and bluegrass musicians, and so it's all music. And I just feel like it's such a shame. By the way, are you have headphones on or something? Because there's a banging and a rustling going on that's a little bit distracting.
Maybe I'm just.
If you're walking around, it just sounds like my question is this, also, this is the other question I have for you. When you saw cats like Chet Baker or I don't even know, Miles, do you recognize now in hindsight that those guys were basically shooting from the hip? They knew the language of bebop, but they weren't sitting at home practicing their solos every day like the younger generation does now. They were using the language, some slang, but it was off the cuff. And to me, that's where the individual sound came from. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about how you developed your individual sound, because of the stratification and because of the separation and because it seems to me that we're in this age of conformity that, outside of Joshua Redman and Christian McBride, that's great. I can't tell who anybody is anymore. And everybody from that time period, 50s, 60s, into the 70s, everybody had their own individual sound. Every drummer had their own individual sound. You could tell who everybody was. That's what made it magical. And now there's homogenization of sound. So how did you go about finding your voice?
Well, once again, every region and every place would have their own heroes, and it was a different time. Economically, it was a different time. So there were people around Seattle that I really liked, and there were people, a lot, friends of my dad's and things that were just great, and that their sound got into my head, just as much as the greats, like checking out, obviously Train and Miles and people like that. So I remember when I first had a national thing going for a second, and some reviewer called me and said, "Who are your influences?" And I rebelled right away because I knew where they wanted me to go, basically. And I was just kind of, still kind of an a-hole, and I said to the guy, I said, nobody you would know, and that was the end of that question, right? And,
Well, that's what Miles would say.
I mean,
That's what people, everybody, Jerry Gwinnett.
I could,
Yeah.
I could have taken the bait and said, yeah, well, blah blah blah, Miles. Well, there's a lot of Miles in there, of course. I listen to Miles like crazy, and I listened to my dad's record collection and things. But there was a guy that I really liked, Freddie Greenwell. He was kind of one of the real unsung heroes of the tenor saxophone, and he played at Eugene Wright's jazz loft in New York a lot. And he was in all kinds of bands. And there was a guy down in Tacoma that was great. Neil Frio was great. And nobody's ever heard of him. And he electrified me when I was a kid. And then there was a guy named Floyd Staniford that played locally here. He played tenor, and he was actually a trumpet player. He was on Quincy's band in Europe on trumpet, and he sang like an angel and could play trumpet and tenor, and it was just great. And now Floyd was my teacher, so he had a lot of influence on me. Now it's gotten into, we don't have a society that's kind of supporting the music generally as much, so it's changed now. It's gotten into the schools. That's where it basically is at now, in schools and things like that. So it was a little different when I was coming up, and now there's only one jazz city that you can actually be from and tour, unless you're very lucky, and that's New York. It's all New York.
Yeah, I'd say maybe New Orleans. I mean,
New York. Then the assumption is that you cannot make it, and
right.
That's it. So, and even people that go to New York, they fall for that they're a different breed, And I'm going, well, New York is great, and I lived in New York. And I understand that. I mean, I understand that whole thing. I understand the identification with a place. I mean, when I lived in New York, yeah, New York is the best. When I lived in San Francisco, yeah, San Francisco is the best. Whatever. I mean, I realize now I'm, 71. I just go, well, there's no best. I mean, that'd be like saying, my wife is the best. No, you probably have a wife too. I mean, my wife is best for me.
Well, I after 13 years and 2 children, my wife, the mother of my children, we separated, which was for the best. But I do know, I mean, Jay, I'll send you this interview later, but I interviewed Senator Eugene Wright. The entire West Village was artists' ability. People could live there. You could go out, work for Radio Registry, and play and make enough money in the studios to pay your rent. And then you could go and blow at the clubs all night. I mean, it's completely different. The gentrification, the pushing out of the culture, and the ability to say, I mean, it's laughable that you could potentially, that you could be a musician in a big urban center today, based on the cost of living and the fact that a gigging musician, which you obviously did quite a bit, the wages for a gigging musician haven't gone up since 1984. And so I'm just, you know what it is? I've dedicated my show to the creatives. I've dedicated my show to the originalists. And, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to take a listen to this, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
admire the most is the statements that stick with me and become part of my life. One of them is that every man has his gift of God or his proper gift of God, something like in that kind of statement, that form.
Mm-hmm.
And I perceive it in people. There are no two people alike, even though they try, because we learn from our masters in front of us. They're the teachers. So we learn everything we can learn from them, but we don't end up sounding like this. Our personality comes from how much energy we put into it. So if you put it in, you're going to get it out. But it is there. Our Creator has given us the ability to do a lot of things. You can branch off. Ron Carter said to me one day, he said to one of his friends, he said, man, George Benson could have been a scientist or a doctor or anything he wanted to be, because those things branch off into different directions, there's a lot of mathematics in music. I'm not a mathematician, and I don't like blood. I'm scared to death when I see blood. I don't like it. So I know I couldn't be a doctor. A scientist, yeah. I channeled it through my music and invented some things that had not been done on the guitar. And how I did it was I asked myself a question. How come Montgomery didn't figure this out? How come he didn't do it like this? Why didn't he add this note over here to his octaves? And I said, well, there's nothing to prevent you from doing it. So,
I dig, man.
So I jumped on it.
I dig it, man.
Years later, it turned out to be a staple in my playing without me even trying to force it in. I just kept doing it, and pretty soon people began to notice it.
Well, he gave that away. That was my interview with George Benson. And I just...
All right.
And I wanted you to talk about, if you could talk about a memory you have when you had the rudiments in place and you were able to get out of your own way and allow the information to come through you. You became a vessel, Jay. That's the point. We talk about the academy today. You can't teach blues and jazz in the academy. It's a street music. And you grew up at a time when you saw and witnessed magic from, Joe Brazil, Rahsaan Roland Kirk. The list goes on and on and on. These guys didn't come out of the academy, and they channeled the music coming through them from the heavens. And I wanted you to talk about your own journey when you were able to get out of your own way and allow the information to come through you.
Well, blues. I mean, blues is America's indigenous folk music, basically.
That's right.
And it's like polka music or something. The polka music, if you played clarinet polka, if you played it in the key of C, the three keys that you would play, each little key section, the first one is in the key of C, second one is in the key of F, and the third one is in the key of G. Whoa. Wow. And then it's back to key of C. And that's blues, right? That's also clarinet polka. So it comes from a variety of places. I would say, getting involved in some bands that, first of all, I had the desire to do it, and it's been a long process. At first, I didn't have the vocabulary. I had the desire, and I played I had some really bad moments playing, where people, I remember at rehearsal one time when a friend of my dad's was there, and I took a solo break on some kind of song, and this guy was laughing. And being a young person,
wow, yeah,
full of serious energy and a lot of passion, I hated that guy, and that was kind of like one of my many, this where the cymbal was thrown at Bird, I mean, I had
right.
that moment where I used to go and play at a section place, and there was a piano player from Chicago, I remember his name, Fred Harris, and instead of isn't it so great that this young person wants to play jazz? No, he had a different idea. When I played, he knew I didn't have the same kind of information that he thought that a basic was a prerequisite to get on the bandstand with him, right? So he was kind of a guardian of this whole art form. He was like one of those guardians at the gate, and
He was hoarding it.
well,
Yeah,
I was gonna,
I dig.
well, he wasn't hoarding it. No, he was going to keep the quality up, and he wasn't going to go, oh, this is great, yo, young, blah blah blah. No, he figured even if I played trumpet, I should know the changes just as well as he did. Period. Knowing the melody was not enough.
Wow.
Okay, so he'd do all these histrionics and things when I go up to play. He'd go, sigh, put his head down, and you know, that was this guy. If I run into him ever, I'll thank him. You know, he's probably pretty old now. You know, because that's kind of what I needed, and so it wasn't like whiplash or any bullshit like that. It was okay. He was making his he was there, you know, taking care of business. Like, okay, this is one of the things you need to do. You need to know this if you're going to get into this in any kind of serious way. Well, that's just one thing, but you know, for me, you know, I kept going, and I started playing with R&B bands and things like that. Being a trumpet player back in those days, an R&B band had a lot of times they would have a trumpet and a saxophone player, you know, and you would play, and so that's how I worked for the beginning part of my career. I kept going with jazz and everything, but there was no way I was going to make money with that much money with jazz. And later on, it morphed over to I was able to stop playing R&B all the time, and of course those gigs dried up when I got older, and it was a combination of getting older and also the lack of freestanding dance clubs.
Sure.
Now, you know, I mean, I played in a kind of a variety band, and we were Last of the Mohicans playing, you know, the lounges in hotels and things, and then that even dried up. So then I became like had a, you know, a variety band for parties and things like that. But all the while, I started getting more calls for jazz things and stuff like that. I mean, some of the first times where I would play and just be taken with the music was when I kind of learned enough of the language to start playing with the drums. And I didn't have to be worried all the time about Jesus, where am I at, what chord am I in, or whatever, you know. And those were great. I used to play high all the time, and then my life changed. 1985, I got clean, and I had to relearn, but it wasn't that difficult because I started out as a musician that wasn't playing high all the time, so I just had to reclaim that part of myself that could just get there through the music. And there's a lot that goes on. It's just what you have to practice. You have to play. You have to listen. You have to be moving along, and you have to play with other people that value spontaneity. So then it becomes a group thing. It depends on, like, there's all kinds of different ways that people play, and they're all valid. I mean, some people play more like they're giving a speech or something, and the band is fairly static around them. Then we had bands like Miles's band where it was all a conversation, And when it's a conversation, it's going to be by the seat of your pants, because that's the way conversations go. You know.
Well,
And,
I mean, can
so
you point to a time in your career when, whether you were high or not, where, you know, either you left your physical body on the bandstand? I mean, the only music I
Oh,
can't.
that could go, yeah.
Well, no, because you know
That
what it
could
is,
go way
like
back.
we've been trained in Western society to sit and stare. I'm talking about modern day. Sit and stare at somebody's facility or technique, and then applaud on command, whether we like the song or not. And the whole idea of the jazz community, and you were part of it, it was basically a black subculture through the 70s, was if I go to a show, I want to walk out of the show with introspection. I don't need to be talking. I want to be burning. And so, yeah, maybe all music is valid, but the only ones that get me off is when people go for it and they play beyond what they know, because everybody in the conversation is operating on the same spiritual frequency. And I just wanted you to talk about a band that you were in where that happened.
Well, I was on a band in New York called the Albert, and we a couple of times we would, maybe in the midst of a jam session or something, we'd be playing along, and all of a sudden new things would start to happen, and we never knew where those things came from. There was another club that I used to go to in New York called Musart, and it was on Spring Street, and it was operated by a guy named George Braith. And George Braithwaite, I've seen his name spelled different ways.
Yeah, I know that name.
He's a very hip guy, and at the time he had a underground place on Spring Street, or maybe it's Prince, maybe Spring Street, Prince Street. I don't know. It was in the West Village, and a couple of times, I played where, I had no idea where that came from. One time it was like they were, looking at me like, what the hell? I mean, like, even George, I mean, he knew the limitations of my information and knowledge, but he looked at me and he went, all he could say was, flugelhorn, like, question mark, like, what happened, but I had no way of moving forward with that. I wasn't very confident, or I could have hired anybody I wanted, really. I mean, that's the game, really, understanding that. I didn't really understand that, but I was in a lot of pretty good playing situations early on. This club, George Braith would hire people like Wilbur Ware and some real famous people.
I just want to be clear. Are we talking about George Braith, the guy who plays multiple horns in his mouth, or is it Braithwaite?
Yeah, that's it. George Braith.
Oh, I've interviewed. No, George is a dear friend. George is a dear friend of mine. He's a badass, dude. Yeah, I cannot believe that you had an underground club there.
Oh yeah, it was called Musart, and
yeah,
I remember he had. Oh God, I'm having a brain fart. Who's the oldest drummer going right now? That's just
Roy Haynes.
Still, Roy Haynes. I remember he hired Roy Haynes down there one time to play the jam session. He'd have all kinds of people down there: Jimmy Garrison, Albert Daly, and
Masters.
I met all kinds of people down there, and they weren't jumping up and down going, G. Thomas. But I remember when I first went there and played, he said to me, he goes, he looking at me, it was like Gladiator time or something. He looks at me, he goes, what do you want to play? And I said, I'm like from Seattle, and I go, Forest Flower. And he looks at me like disgusted, and he goes, no, a standard. So I went, Well, I knew from Monk's San Francisco Holiday album, I was real into I'm Getting Sentimental Over You. So I said, how about I'm Getting Sentimental Over You? And he goes, okay. And so we played that, and, you know, that I already had all those sounds in my head, feel Joe Gordon's solo off in high school and stuff. So I was just, you know, I was just playing along, and it was good. It was like I passed muster. That's all I needed to do.
No, you did great, man.
You know
You held your own, man.
Well, he looked at me and he went, "Oh, okay, you know, okay, you're fine. Go and sit down now. Whatever. We'll call you." And I go in there and just wait, and eventually he'd go, "Yeah, come on up and play." And that was really a cool club. I heard all kinds of people there. Very, very. I remember hearing Pete LaRocca's band there. I'm like right next to the bell of a young Dave Liebman.
Oh my dear, you know, a dear friend, man. My God.
And one time George called me. He says, "I think you better come down here." And it was in the afternoon. I ran down there, and it was some guy named big black singer named Birdsong or something. And he had a band.
Edwin Birdsong, dude. Are you kidding me?
And young Mike Brecker was playing.
Totally.
I went, oh my God, you know, listening to the notes come off the ceiling. I mean, I had magical thinking going all the time, 24 hours a day. So I just knew that his notes were coming off the ceiling. Well, he was playing the altissimo register. It was tenor. I took up tenor at that period of time. I'd go down in the basement of the Albert Hotel some nights and practice. And I went down there with his tenor player one night, and he goes, "Yeah, we're practicing and learning, you know, lines together and various things." And he goes, he says, "Let me play your trumpet. Let me try your trumpet." So I hand him the trumpet, and he's over there like making these mewing sounds. And I'm standing there with his tenor. And I put the mouthpiece in my mouth, and I knew the fingerings from flute, from my sister, because I was kind of a hippie flute player. And
sure.
I started playing his tenor. About 5 minutes into it, I'm playing, all bird tunes and things like that. And I go, whoa, I got to get one of these.
Wow.
So that became the beginning of my thing as now I get as much work on saxophone as I do on trumpet. So,
it's beautiful. I mean, Fletch said, I just want you to be as honest as you can, because Fletch was at Yale for a hot minute, and he used to come down and see you guys play. He said you guys philosophically were on the edge, almost frighteningly on the edge. I mean, do you believe that? I don't know. I found it revelatory because Stanley Crouch, the great writer, he told Joe Chambers, the drummer, that the music that from the mid '60s on Blue Note, Andrew Hill, Joe Henderson, Bobby Hutcherson. He said Stanley Crouch said that was actually the free jazz, and in fact, cats like Eiler and Shep were squeaking and squawking. And Joe Chambers said that those guys, the guys that were making the Blue Note records, would hear those guys at clubs, and they didn't really respect them because they couldn't play changes, they couldn't back up a singer, and they couldn't get a gig. The thing about the Blue Note records was you could hear the tradition. They could play changes, and they were adding to the vocabulary of the music. I just wonder about how actively socially conscious you were about, I don't want to say expressing, how much did you express your emotion through your horn, especially in that late 60s period, because it was a very volatile time politically and socially. And there were cats like Shep and Eiler who were basically channeling their own anguish. I mean, it was not part of. Go ahead.
They could both play. I mean, I don't know what Albert Eiler was playing. I met his brother Don Eiler.
Don
I had a
Eiler.
funny experience.
No, tell that.
Don Eiler, the trumpet player.
Yeah.
He was down at and he started to play, and it was like, some bizarre, just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And I love George. George just goes, hey, wait, there's a time for this, and I'll let you know. I'll signal you when you come in. So they played Yesterdays. And at the end, they vamp out. It's in D minor, and he signals to Don Eiler, and Don Eiler just starts, going through all registers and wiggling his fingers like crazy on the trumpet, and did his thing, right? And that was fine. Everybody was friendly, but I walked over to his case. I was a very nosy young guy, and I looked in his case. There was like some music manuscript paper, and it was just the first five notes that you learn in the beginning lesson. It was C up to G in the fingerings, and I just went, oh boy. So it came across immediately. I said, oh, he has no idea, from what I'm thinking, right? But there was a time where I would, kind of try to listen to some of that stuff, but I gravitated towards, because you can express yourself with an instrument and not know all the things that mainly the traditional people think that you probably should know. There's places where Train went that he could go, right? And but not everybody was into it. I mean, I don't listen to it, the record Expression, for instance.
Sure.
But I sure like, so many things. I don't listen to the Sonny Rollins Calypso music. In fact, I hate Calypso music.
But I mean, I'll throw on like, Joe Farrell, any day. I mean, that stuff is more understandable to my ear than some of the. I just feel like jazz was a social it was a social consciousness music. It was a hip music, and it
is. It's the true multicultural music of our time, and it has its own ethics and morals and everything else built into it, and it's also very democratic. If you're going to be honest about it, jazz has got all that going for it, and it's so. I remember it that time.
Well, I just remember, you know what it is. What I want you to talk about is what you were channeling philosophically, because Fletch Wiley is a pretty intellectual dude. He said you guys were scary, man. Like, to me, like it was a very radical time, but I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, people were stretching the boundaries. And again, it goes back to this whole idea. I interviewed Greg Rico from Sly Stone, David Garibaldi, Tower of Power, Michael Shreve, Santana. The list goes on and on and on. Right. All these guys were jazz balls. They were jazzers, but yet then they took that language and moved it into there was no name for funk, but they translated it over into rock music, which made all that so intoxicatingly beautiful. And so there was because of this radicalizing and because of this love of jazz, which was popular music at the time, it was being driven by social consciousness. And I wanted to know what was driving you socially at that time.
Well, the Vietnam War and all the stuff. Let's put it this way. I didn't believe in any institutions. There was none of them that were talking to me, and so I graduated in 1967, and the first thing I did was go down to San Francisco I was playing jazz. I played at a club. I remember playing at a club, and this really, the Monterey Folk Festival had just happened, and these people, I was jamming with these guys, and they were telling me about this guitar player. Oh, it's Jimi Hendrix, right?
Right.
And all that stuff was really going. I remember playing this gig with these guys, really good San Francisco musicians, great cats, and they had this San Francisco Jazz Quintet, I think, sextet, and oh God, we were playing at this place called the Straight Theater, and we're playing, and I'm thinking to myself, real egotistically in a way, we're playing like Dolphin Dance or something.
I love this so much, dude. Oh my God, I cannot believe
it's like it really sounds great to my ears. I'm going, God, what a great arrangement. We're all playing, and I'm just thinking, oh, this is great. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, we'll follow that. The next band, kind of these hippie characters, and they came up, and the first note out of their instruments hit me like a blast of sound. It almost knocked me over. It just like it was the amount of sound that from the very first note, and the people just kicked the furniture out of the way, and they were up and dancing just like insane dog joy. And I went, whoa, that was, I mean, when I think back on it, God, those people were so nice and polite even to listen to us.
Hold on, was it the Sons? Who was it? The Sons of Champlin? The Dead? Who was it?
It was Grateful Dead.
In my second book, which is all about the Merry Pranksters, Wavy Gravy, and the Grateful Dead side projects, Bill Champlin from the Sons of Champlin. The Dead's the first time they trotted out the two drummer thing was at the Straight Theater. I cannot believe, Jay. First of all, who was in the San Francisco Quintet? Who was in that band?
There's a guy, I think it's Charlie McCarthy or something. The tenor player. He's pretty famous down there, and a guy named Jim Dookie.
Whoa, dude, you're dropping some. I don't know. I consider myself.
Those guys are. Jim Dookie has got a real great arranger, and he's really good. And Charlie McCarthy is still playing down there. He's playing with.
Oh my God.
What's the old timer now that plays tenor? Still Noel Juke.
Oh, Jim, my man, dude. Loved. I mean, dude. So 67. You're playing with these cats, blowing jazz. And then the Grateful Dead's coming up there, and they're skiffling around, but people are dancing. They were probably on acid too. Yeah, I mean,
it went crazy, right? and I went, oh my God, and so I was, involved in this stuff. I played when I moved to New York. I was playing with Machito's band at the Concord Hotel when Woodstock happened. And Woodstock was just like, 15 minutes or less away from the Concord Hotel. I saw all these people, and I went there. So, I mean, I went, I was definitely, not for the Vietnam War. I thought that people should, they should be free to do whatever they wanted to do, basically, if they're not hurting other people. And I certainly wasn't a big fan of drug laws, because I knew, just from counting, by body count, we already knew that cigarettes and alcohol were worse than all of them. Crack or any of them is just silly. I mean, we have a system that certainly I would not describe as harm reduction. and so I mean I was into that. I didn't really look like a hippie because I'm playing with Machito's band, even though they thought I was a hippie. I mean, compared to them and my age and everything, they were saying to me, yeah, Jay. One guy, old trumpet player, says, yeah. When you go into the city, I want to come. I want to go to an orgy. You're
like, why do I look like that? Like what's going? Yeah.
What? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the guy goes, no, I just want to watch. And I said, oh, okay, whatever. And
oh my gosh.
So
I want to ask you though. This is really important though. I noticed we got to become friends on Facebook because we have many mutual friends and one of them is the original bass player from the Sons of Champlin, Rob Matoiza. That band was the most sophisticated. To me, a lot of those bands, Sly, Quicksilver, not Quicksilver so much, The Dead, Jefferson Airplane, a lot of skiffle players coming out of the folk scene. The Sons, Haggerty's a dear friend of mine. Champlin's a great cat. Those guys, were they the most musical band of that time? I couldn't ask a better person. I mean, from that psychedelic collective.
Well, I'm not sure. I know I lived down there a little later, and it's funny that the Merry Pranksters. My girlfriend was this. Her name.
Don't even go there. Don't even tell me. Go. What was it?
She went by in the book the electric Kool-Aid acid test. She was stark naked.
I'm going to need to interview her immediately.
Well, she died of cancer. Kathy Kasama.
And she was with Babs and Kesey and Wavy at the Watts acid test.
Well, yeah, she was along. She was in the book. She was the one that they were going to make a star out of. And when they got to Texas, she's already been to northeastern universities and stuff like that, and she was beautiful. And she also looked, even though she was of Italian descent, she looked close enough to Mexican.
Wow.
And she took off mad. They were all on acid, and she took off mad. She was mad at somebody, and she was walking along, and the police saw her and called out to her, and she just put her nose up in the air. And when they tackled her, she started biting them, and she was high. And
sure.
Yeah.
I cannot believe. Dude, I'm obsessed. I'm 43 years old.
Later on, she changed her name to Katrina, but I think it's you'll find it Kasama.
Yeah, no, you know what it was?
Kasama.
She was at the Longshoremen's. You're talking about the electric Kool-Aid acid test, that book.
The book by she's in there
by Tom Wolfe.
Yeah. She was she took off down in Texas, and they ended up leaving her in Texas.
Wow.
And, Larry McGurtry got her out.
Oh my God! Yeah, no. Larry was married to Faye Kesey. He just passed away.
Right.
Oh my God, dude! I knew you were. I knew you were a prankster in some way, dude.
Well, I was down in San Francisco. She was quite a bit older than I was, but still really beautiful. And I was like 28, but I lived in Marin County, and that's where the Sons were really strong and right around.
Are you kidding me, dude? Yeah. Dude, you have to be. First of all, you married this woman?
No, but I was with her for a year.
Oh, dude, because you know who I want to ask you about, because these guys were the godfathers of Marin County music, and I love them both, and they're still kicking ass. Knock on wood. John Allaire and Pete Lind. Did you know they were playing organ drums in a bowling alley back in in Marin County? Do you know those cats?
Wow. No, I don't. I got with a band. What were they called? There was a band. Later on, some of them were with Huey Lewis.
Don't even tell me you were in Soundhole.
I was in a band called Clover.
Oh, dude, with Huey.
I don't even know.
Wait, hold on. No, Clover. That was the band that Huey was. Was Huey in the band at that time or no?
Not at that time, but there was some other guys. There's a guy down there now, Marty Fooch. He knows about some of that stuff.
Oh my God.
He was younger than me. He's a bass player. I think he's still going. Michael Bars.
Michael Barchet.
Thomas.
Barchet, maybe? No, you
I'm
know what
not
it is?
sure
No, because
what-
I, you know, like Bill Gibson and Mario Cipollina, they were in a band called Soundhole, and then they got picked up by Van Morrison, and then eventually they became the rhythm section for Huey. So, I mean, I'm just curious, like when you
I was in a band called Madam Butterfly for a minute.
whoa,
And that was a lot of people that were tied up with Van Morrison. The tenor player, Schroer, Jack Schroer.
dude, you
He's
are
on
dropping
the-
some serious. Was Daoud Shaw out there? Who else was in that band?
I don't know, but
I mean, you were really in. So, I mean, what was your?
that band, Madam Butterfly. It had both of John Hendricks' daughters sang backup in that band.
Oh my God, that is legendary.
And but there was so much coke going on, and I don't know what happened. The singer, he was a very, very good looking African American guy who was tied up with Van somehow, and their band manager, they had way too much coke, and they had automatic weapons and all kinds of stuff. And I remember later on when there was some stuff that happened with that whole manager of Tower and some of the other people, there was some bad things happened in the dealing in coke and the whole thing. So I kind of got out of there.
But you must have been going. You must have been going to the Trident to see Grinelli and Flip Nunez and those those cats. Grinelli.
Well, I played with Grinelli a few times down there, and I was with a band with it was called We Go Way Out. I got invited to play with these guys. They were called the Gravity Adjusters.
Dude, Lee Charlton, man, is a dear friend. I cannot believe you're dropping Richard Waters. Rest in peace.
Right, these guys.
Wait,
these
you were
guys
playing with the Gravity
there.
Adjusters? You have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me.
No, I went out there a couple of times, and they had a place kind of out in the country, and
Tom Donlinger was in that band.
Tom Dollinger. I was in a band with Tom Dollinger. Yes,
and
that was really.
Well, what band was that?
That was a great band. I can't remember even what we were called.
AB Sky.
But,
AB Sky.
We didn't play much, but we had a bunch of really great arrangers. Some guy from Berkeley. I knew. There's a guitar player down there too. A young guy that was younger than me.
Was it Jim Vincent?
Archie.
Jim Vincent? James Vincent?
A guy named Archie. He played with.
I cannot believe. Wait, hold on. Have you spoken to Lee Charlton at all?
No.
I hope he's. I don't know.
I know his.
Yeah.
I know his name, but I lost contact with those guys down there. But that's what I was doing down there for a second.
I can't believe you're. That's
doing
so pimp.
Some gigs at the Omnibus I used to play at, and Manny Boyd.
Oh, whoa, dude! Don't Emmanuel Boyd.
Manny Boyd. He played later on. He played tenor at that time. He was playing with Bobby Hutcherson.
Dude, I have the most ridiculous. This is driving the spirits, man. Like, I have an album, Woody Shaw album, Song of Songs, 1970. Manny Boyd playing flute. Like, I mean, dude, he is channeling the spirit, man. I cannot believe. Were you at the heliport playing with like Electric Flag, or I mean, bottom line is like.
No, but one of my idols played the trumpet with Electric Flag. That was Mark Doubleday. I loved Mark Doubleday. He died at my ex-wife's house.
Oh.
Just Jesus. But Doubleday, he was great. He was a real monster trumpet player. Ask Fletch Wiley about Mark Doubleday. Jesus.
Well, I mean,
the other guy
what?
around here,
Yeah.
you know, he played with everybody. He ended up with Janis's band and stuff. When I was just a pup in New York, not making much headway. I mean, there was like Village Voice. You'd see a picture of Mark Doubleday and these people, just rehearsing or whatever. He was with, Coriel helped him later on. Coriel got him with Paul Butterfield's band, and then he ended up with the Electric Flag. And then, then I think he was with Holding Company.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you were talking about the
great trumpet player.
Yeah, you were talking about the
trumpet player.
Monterey Pop Festival. That's where Janis was with Jimmy. Jay,
I was in San Francisco when that happened. I was, the Monterey. My friends went to it, and they came back. And they went, "Come on, there was this guitar player. He came out and he just played all this blues and this, wacky stuff, and then lit his guitar on fire." And we were like, "Whoa, really?" And he was from Seattle, and so I played with my first steady gig in Seattle was with Jimmy Pipkins and the Boss Five, and we had a hit single called "Walkin' the Duck," and my gig was at this place called the House of Entertainment, and it started at 11:30 at night and went to 4:30. And it was a black teenage after-hours nightclub. Wow, there's nothing like that around now.
No.
Anywhere, right? And this went from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It was a 3-night-a-week gig for me, and I was like in high school. Well, at that point, I was like unteachable too. I mean, I went to Berkeley School of Music on a scholarship and didn't stay. I just went, this is a factory. I'm out of here.
You already knew. What year did you go? So what year did you go there?
I had my scholarship for the year of would have been the year of '68.
So it was still known as the Schillinger House then, wasn't it?
No, it was Berkeley.
It was Berkeley at that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
it was already a factory.
But
you say it was already a factory because I
thought it was a factory. I thought it was a factory because that's all I did anyway was practice and play. I mean, I was like, they're going, we're like in an indoctrination thing in this big auditorium, and some guy in an ugly brown suit is up there talking to us, and he goes, in order to go to the school, you're going to have to listen to music a lot. And I'm going, who's he talking to?
I know.
That's not me. What, wait a minute. And then he starts talking about Terry Gibbs' big band, and I'm so into, at that time I was like, transcribing and peeling off, Wayne Shorter solos and stuff from
Schizophrenia.
Juju.
Juju, yeah, I love that album. My God, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I was like deep into Yes or No and things like that, and I was just going, what's this guy talking about here? And I just, it was like such a different world. So politically, I was already so far along, and I considered myself, I didn't have a whole lot of automatic respect for older people. I didn't give a shit about them, basically. I mean, I didn't have.
But you also realized that it wasn't suicide to walk away from the academy, which today people would be, your parents would take you to the woodshed if you did that. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, I just want, and I remember the guy, even though I came up with a cock and bull story while I was leaving, the dean looked at me and he kind of knew my situation all of a sudden. He sized me up and he said, yeah, you can do it on your own. He says, it's just going to be harder. Well, he was right. He was right. There were things that I could have picked up had I stayed there. I didn't really complete some of the things that I could have gotten earlier until much later. After I cleaned up, I sat down and one day I said, my grasp of functional harmony is still not where it needs to be, and so I, I'm still learning today, but I got busy and fixed those things. They could have been fixed earlier, and being part of the quote unquote music industry would have been a great thing to stay at Berkeley. But so music, as you can see, for me has never been about the music industry. I didn't become a musician to be employed. I mean, that was it. I was a very, I had some real world-class enablers around me. People, my father backed me, and there was various things, and I didn't grow up poor or anything like that. So I just assumed that everything was going to be okay. Wow. And now I feel like really badly for the people where they cannot make that assumption. I mean, if you give a starving, choice to a starving person between a cheese sandwich and a Picasso painting, they're going to go with the cheese sandwich every time. And so we're in a real politics now of famine kind of.
I agree.
And the famine is just not enough to go around.
Which is actually a falsehood. There's plenty to go around, but
there is plenty to go around, and I think that it's just I don't have any belief in anything. I believe. Here's what I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that I live in an intelligent universe, period. Boom. Do I believe that, of a God that stands outside of all matter? No, I don't, that's molding it somehow. No, I have a pretty, I don't know, that somebody go, yeah, you're pantheistic or whatever. Well, whatever. I believe that I live in an intelligent universe, and that's about as far as I'm going to go.
Well, no, but I mean, this is.
It's miraculous. Yeah. It's miraculous when I look around me. It's incredibly beautiful and tragic and everything that you can imagine. And so the only thing I can do, as Joseph Campbell said, is joyfully participate in the sorrows of life.
This is the J. Thomas. I mean, after 75 minutes, we're finally getting the real J. The poetic J. Thomas coming out. I love it. I got another Name That Voice for you, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Spiritual thing is basically when you're playing, and it's just not bebop. This is other music too, but bebop in jazz is probably that's the high end of what we do as jazz musicians. But just the spirituality comes from it's like something. Now this may sound abstract, but it's something that Wayne Shorter said to me one time. He said that the only way you can really, really, really play is that you have to go to the store and buy some milk for your grandmother. And when he said that to me and the drummer Omar Hakim, now he had a few drinks, a few old drinks.
Right.
I said, "Wow!" But a couple days later, it hit me, because it's like to come if you have one of those kind of families. You go to see your grandmother. She says, "Go to the store and get me some milk," and you go there. There's a love. There's a love for something other than just what you're looking at. It's like your own personal love, which could come from God, which could come from the force of life. It could be whatever it is that you think makes you tick. Mm-hmm. That if you tap into that, whatever that is, it's not a material. It's not the instrument. It's not the notes. It's the life force. And that is when you operate on that band, that's or on that frequency in life, that is very spiritual.
Mr. Thomas, you want to take a guess at who that is?
I think it's the drummer, right?
Well, no, the drummer was Omar Hakim. This is a bass player playing with Wayne Shorter.
Oh, who's that?
That was my first interview from September 2014 with Stanley Clark. And
okay, yeah.
You know, Jay,
Wow.
I just wanted. I mean, the Cats have helped me find my voice. I'm 43 years old. I was born in 1978. I have been going back and chronicling a period in our cultural history when I feel that the vibration was much higher, the frequencies were much higher, and music really dictated our culture, mainly because of what he's talking about. The idea of getting into a group of musicians where everybody's operating with the understanding of we want this to be such a beautiful conversation that it's like going to the store to get your grandma some milk. And I just wanted you to talk about if that resonates with you and when that really dawned on you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it exactly. I mean, Train kind of laid that out, and it is what you're saying. It's beyond just the technique of it, but what are you saying? Are you saying, please, thank you,
Right.
I love you? What is it that you're saying? I mean, there's a time when you can say, look at me, listen to my sound. That's also valid, especially in Latin music. But a lot of times, if you're not getting to that, please, 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 and thank you and all that stuff, then you're missing out. I mean, and that's what I hear in Train sound when I listen to, if I listen to Train play, not just the ballads, but so many things. I hear that in his sound, and he had a spiritual awakening, and if you read Love Supreme, it's a very pantheistic kind of thing that he's got going there, and it's an amazing thing, and I believe that that's really important. What do I have a big belief system? No, but I have that feeling that I know what that is. Like, I love the way Wayne Shorter teaches. That's the way I teach too, actually. And Wayne Shorter said, he was talking to somebody one time about harmony, and he said, yeah, you got to go all the way. I can't remember if it was up the steps or down the steps, and shake hands with them, referring to every single note. And so, and that's the way he does it. It's just like, it's not just a theory of, it's like I pick up on things like there's somebody I know, I like her a lot. She's a real good piano player, and she has a saying now at these jazz camps. She says, there are no right notes, because we've heard so many years that, like, there are no wrong notes. Well, there are no right notes either.
Mm-hmm.
This is the deal. It's so beyond that, it's not even funny, and that's what I love about I can hear that in Miles's sound, even though Miles may be not going to pass muster to everybody right now, every single second of the time, but he's a lot more than just, he's, as an artist, it's hard to refute his influence and what he did. I'm thinking the same thing about Picasso and all kinds of people that maybe were not perfect in every aspect of their existence, but they were really important people. And so I'm kind of a Buddhist without a belief system, in a way.
No, it's called a way. It's called a way of life, and you've been cultivating that way of life. I just wonder, as it relates to being in a collective, can you point to a band when you were operating on a freak? I mean, that's what the M1 Dishi band with Eddie Henderson, you know, I've interviewed all the cats except Herbie and Benny, but those guys were traveling around, reading the same spiritual texts, and then they would get on the bandstand and, like, telepathically they were so in sync that, you know, it was just that kind of vibe. And I wonder if you had that in experience, maybe the Albert Band or a band where you said you'd look over after a gig. What did you know that? I had no idea. It was just like the telepathy and the synergy was just palpably more. It was beyond any logical mind.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it happen so many times.
Oh, wow.
I mean, what I like now is like, these Japanese guys I play with. I go to Japan a couple times a year, and I'm a member of this organization. One is the East West band. You can find it on the East West Trio. It might even be called Double Trio or something. East West Double Trio. Jay Thomas. It'll come up, and those guys are really, really fun. We have a ball. We have so much fun, and that's what I love is the fun and playfulness, and these guys are heavy duty spiritual guys. This guy, he's younger than I am, but he's really a strong leader. This Kohama, the band leader, and he had an epiphany. He was in New York. And he was a young guy, and he went to see the Mel Lewis band, and he just freaked out of how great they were, right? And he just went, "Oh my God!" And to see all those people working together to create something beautiful, he said he couldn't stop crying, and he went back to Japan and started a band, and I've been playing with them for over 20 years now, and they've gotten really. Hello, you have reached 206-3.
Hey, I lost you.
I thought I had my phone plugged in, but I didn't. I had it plugged into something that wasn't.
No. You know what? Let's pick up this conversation. You want to do set 2 maybe next week?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, great.
Yeah. I'm having fun talking with you. So I got to go out to this old guy's house now, and he's gonna silver plate a mouthpiece for me. So
hey, man.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, man. Thank you. I mean, you've lived a great life, and keep channeling the intelligent way, man.
Well, I'm having fun. Thanks, Jake. I'll talk to you next week.
You got it, Jay.
Okay.
Later, dude.
Take care.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks to Fletch Wiley for the hookup. Dropping knowledge here on the Jake Feinberg Show. We will see you later.